Listening to podcast is no replacement for real training. While we attempt to provide accurate commentary, we hold no responsibility on how you use the information we provide. Get medical training. In the blink of an eye, everyday order can be replaced with once-in-a-lifetime chaos. Be prepared. This is the Civilian Medical Podcast.
I guess it's my turn. Welcome back to the Civilian Medical Podcast. This is episode 49, I believe. I feel like I've forgotten. What's your name again?
Yeah, I was scrambling trying to pull notes up, and I was like, I have no idea who has the intro, but I'm sure Sean will make it work.
I looked up and you had a blank stare on your face, and I was like, oh boy, it's me.
Yeah, that was me trying to find the show notes going, what are we talking about today?
How's it going?
Good.
That's awesome, man. You said it's getting cold there?
Yes, it's feeling like fall, so we're getting some leaves change colors, and it's getting down in the 40s at night, 70s during the day, so it is perfect fall weather right now.
That's exactly the weather in Colorado right now, actually. Yesterday morning it was 40, and then so I went longboarding in the morning and it was 43, I think, and then we filmed yesterday, so I went to the range and it was 70s all day long. I love it.
Yes, I love going to the range and not sweating. So
yeah,
and our range is right in the middle. I mean, it's kind of similar to your range. Like there's just direct sunlight, so you're sweating out there in the summertime trying to film. So we usually don't film like shooting videos until like afternoons just to kind of cool off a little bit. But right now it's perfect. We just got a new suppressor in too, so we're shooting like crazy.
That's awesome. There's nothing like shooting suppressors, right?
Yes, I love it. And I was like, all right, please let me get this back before November, just because everything going on.
Yep.
And I got mine back. I picked up the Rugged. It's a 9mm can, and got it back in 4 weeks. So like, I wish I could just go buy it off the shelf, but I don't see that happening. But 4 weeks is not bad considering current circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. All right. So what did you want to talk about today?
So when we did our class together, a month or two now, I guess, been a while.
A month ago, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of talked, and one of the things I didn't really talk about very much in my class is about the mindset, about what happens mentally, your motor skills and things like that. So I know you kind of have a good little section in your class. You talk about that and kind of, what happens. People deny that that's a gunshot in the hallway. Even the fact that what you're seeing is so traumatic that it takes you a few seconds, maybe even minutes to react going, holy crap, that guy is dying. He's dead. That's a lot of blood. Like your mindset. So I thought you had a good PowerPoint on it. So I wanted you to talk about it, and we can both talk about it, but this is your subject. So,
okay. Yeah. That's one of the things in my class, because TCCC and TECC, like you're talking to people who they recognize that things change quickly, and they recognize that they're usually getting called to a place or in a place where bad things can happen at the drop of a hat. So they're mentally prepared for it. But when we talk about civilians, it's very much most people, like, nothing bad will ever happen in their lives, right? Like nothing bad. They'll never see anything bad. I know that, like, you being out there every single day providing medical care, or not every day, but being out there providing medical care, like when stuff goes down, you're probably like Johnny on the spot. That's my guess. But like most people, nothing really bad ever happens. Like I've seen some car accidents, been a bystander at those, but nothing crazy. I've never seen anyone get stabbed. I've never seen anyone get shot. And because of that, like I live along, like in that timeline where nothing bad ever happens. And I think most people actually do. So in my class, one of my goals is to make sure that the students learn how to break out of that. And it doesn't all happen in one class. It doesn't happen all in one day, but I really try to teach them how to think about things just a little bit differently. So when we talk about concealed carry and personal defense and things like that, it's being aware of your surroundings, and there's color codes and levels that people can be at. I don't necessarily want to go through all those because there's a lot of conflicting theories there, but understanding that when you sit down at a restaurant that something bad could happen. Where are your exits? Where could bad things happen from? What do you do if something bad does happen? And it's just learning to think like that. And I don't want people to be paranoid. I don't want you to run around or, try to be in condition one all the time, where every single noise you're drawing your firearm, or, like hiding behind cover and concealment. I don't think that's the answer either, but learning to observe around you, learning to have a plan no matter what might happen, I think is really good. So when we talk about people's responses to traumatic incidents, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, he said it really well when he said that there's five ways that people react, and that's fight, flight, freeze, posture, and submit. Fight is exactly what it is, just going head on, fighting like you're the third monkey going on the ark. Making sure that you're going to survive, making sure that it's them or me, and I'm going to make it. Flight is exactly that, getting away from the scenario. Run, hide, fight might as well be just called flight, hide, fight. It's exactly that. It's getting away. When we saw the Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, everyone's like, get down, get down, get down. And that's freeze. They freeze. They in Boston, in the video, there's a lady walking around with her hands on her head, just like frozen in indecision. She's not getting out of there. She's not rendering aid to anybody. She's just looking around, completely frozen in place by all the trauma that's going on around her. She sees blood. There's people screaming. There's people trying to help. There's, police that aren't even rendering aid to anybody on the ground because they're more worried about, what else is going on, what actually happened. We have retrospect, or, we're able to look back on it and be like, oh, we know it was a bomb. But at that moment, they didn't know what it was. It was just suddenly there was a bunch of people bleeding on the ground screaming.
And the thing that too, the probably first responders are having to think about is like the secondary devices, secondary explosions, because we know that's a real issue. That that first one goes off, and then your secondary explosions are trying to get those first responders. So you know, we're trained to think about that. And like, all right, one of your scenarios, you do that for your classes. All right, what's this strange box sitting here? So yeah.
And it's usually just like a backpack or something, just sitting in the middle of everything and totally out of place. And how often does it get missed? I'd say 99.9% of the time. And then I'll talk about that in just a minute because it brings up another point that I do want to cover. So finishing those five responses to traumatic incidents, we have fight, flight, freeze, and then posture. So when people are faced with a threat in some way, that like a gorilla beating on its chest, puffing up, trying to appear threatening, talking real loud. If a bear suddenly appears on the path in front of you, I don't know. Wait, for bears, are you supposed to be quiet and not make? No, I think that's gorillas. But for bears, you're supposed to yell and make yourself look big and things like that, right? That's posturing. And then the fifth response is submit, which is, submission is death. Give me your wallet or I'm going to kill you. Here's my wallet, sir. Please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. Batman's parents, they submitted and they got off in that alley, and that's how Batman was born. But it's giving in to fate. You'll see a lot of people that actually do this. That, they're like, well, I didn't think he was going to kill me, and that's fine until he actually does stab them, shoot them, rape their wives. Like, those things happen. They happen every single day. And I bet that anybody who's ever died in a position where they were just doing everything that their attackers told them to want a do-over. And I never want that to be me. So again, fight, flight, freeze, posture, and submit. So it's really good. When you get scared, what's your response? When someone like startles you or something like that, like what is your response personally?
I would like to say that for the most part, it is like I'm going to try and face what I'm coming at. Obviously if someone catches me off guard, but I try to keep that awareness. And so I would like to think in my mind, if I'm judging myself, is the fact that I'm going to turn and face what's going on. I've had a couple instances where, I was put on high, my threat level was raised. And so, turn and face what's going on, move my wife, kids behind me, or kind of move them to guard them a little bit. But yeah, just, we've all had those moments where like you're completely caught off guard and like, oh crap. But I think for the most part, the scenarios I think about that where I've had my threat level raised is I turned and faced it.
Yeah. And honestly, that's something that lots of people do, but it's what happens right after that. So you turn and face it, and you're ready to attack it head on. So probably fight is kind of one of your first responses. Now, Rob Pincus in ICE training, he talks about startle responses and things like that. And in fact, it's one of the kind of building blocks of his class. He has you turn to face the threat. So you hear a loud noise, you hear someone yell at you, whatever, and it startles you. And that startle response is we turn towards it in a sporting stance, fighting stance almost, hands out in front of us generally. And that is our startle response. If something was just a bang behind me real quick, turn and have that startle response and then act after that. So after that startle response, generally mine is, it is fight and flight. I kind of alternate between those based on the context of the incident. Freeze is definitely something that a lot of people have. And in fact, you and I were here when Sean Maloney from Second Call Defense was here, and he talked about high blood pressure, people taking beta blockers to treat that. And that actually, it's going to cause some freezes because of the way our minds process things and the way that kind of medication limits those impulses. So if you do kind of freeze a little bit, and you're on beta blocker medications, things like that, I wouldn't say that it's a huge thing. Just be aware of it and don't be too hard on yourself. But yeah, fight and flight, I really feel, are kind of the ones that are our goals here. Acting like a gorilla, being a goon, trying to yell at whatever, that's probably not the best way. Submission, absolutely not. And if you do that, break yourself of it immediately. And freezing. Now, sometimes freezing can be processing. Excuse me. And processing is just basically trying to figure out what's going on. So fight or flight, you can fly to wherever you're safe and then take that time to process. You just don't want freeze to be your first response. Like you can take a moment to think about it after you're safe and your family's safe. So yeah, that's generally, I think Grossman put it pretty well. And I definitely agree with most of these things. And if you watch traumatic incidents, the videos that you do and after action reports on the Skinny Medic YouTube channel, you can see a lot of these responses in people, right?
Definitely. And especially, think about like the kids. Like if a kid is, getting ready to get hit by a car, they just freeze. They don't move. They don't stand. They just stand in the middle of the road and they watch and they get hit by a car. Adults, typically when we get hit by a car, we will still freeze for the most part, but we're going to turn and rotate our back to it. So it's kind of what we're meant to, it's our brain that functions like that. So to be able to say, I may have froze for a split second, but I need to bolt. I need to go. I need to run, or I need to go towards the fight. I need to do something. Like you said, I think it's okay to freeze for a second to kind of maybe process what's going on, but then you have to be able to break yourself and say, there's a problem. I need to move, get off the X, or get to cover, concealment, or I'm going to go punch that bad guy in the face. I'm not going to be the one that is going to pump my chest up. And I'm not intimidating. Like, great. Now, if I was 200 pounds all muscle, probably would. But I'm a 175 pound guy with a dad bod. So I'm not going to bow up at you and, raise my voice and stuff like that. It's not me. But I definitely think like you said, that it's okay to freeze for a split second. Maybe you're analyzing everything, but to know that you have to be able to get off of there. You just can't stand in the middle of the road and just with your hands on top of your head. That can't work. And as you were going through there, I was kind of thinking, like, Mrs. Skinny Mac and I've been walking for a while now, every morning. And we were walking last week and we're out in the middle of the country. And I always carry a gun, mostly just because of dogs. Like, that's just kind of what my mindset is for that gun. And we're going down the road, and all of a sudden this guy's just creeping by in an SUV. And so I remember, I was like, all right, yep. I twisted. I was like, yep, my gun's on me. And I was like, all right, if he slows down, I'm going to use my left hand to pull my cover up. I had a shirt. I was like, all right, left hand draw, and I'm going to draw. And next thing he's going to have a gun right to his face right here in this middle of the road. And luckily he just kept on cruising by. I think he was creeping, but whatever.
That's weird.
Yeah. But but at least it gave me about 5 seconds there to process what was going on, to go, all right, this is my game plan. If he stops here in the middle of the road and rolls down that window, he's going to get, I had my H&K VP9 on me. I was like, he's going to get that VP9 right in his face. But, sometimes you don't have that split second to think about process, like that startle response. Like you're saying, you don't have time to process. This is my game plan. but sometimes you do. So to be able to sit with your back against the wall, to watch the door, to watch the exit, to watch people, it may give you that 5 seconds you need going, that guy looks pretty shady. If he draws a gun, I'm gonna draw. And it kind of gives you that second, that time to process what you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So what you did right there is you recognized that something was out of the ordinary, and you reacted extremely well. We have a couple different, psychological coping mechanisms, and I talk about them in class. The first one is called denialism. It's just basically a person's choice to deny reality as a way to avoid some kind of psychologically uncomfortable truth. We deny that anything is wrong. So you hear loud bangs at a mall. What is it? I don't know. Somebody dropped some chairs, dropped some tables, knocked something over. It's probably not really in most people's psyche to be like, oh, maybe that was gunfire. And most people don't even really know what gunfire sounds like inside. So when you actually hear it, which I've heard gunfire indoors a lot. When you actually hear it, you're like, okay, I would have never picked that up as gunfire at all. If you go stand outside of an indoor shooting range and you hear just the hollow clong, clong, clong as people shoot inside, it really is probably one of the best ways to train yourself to what gunfire sounds like when it's not right around you, right? We go to the shooting range, we're an indoor shooting range, and it's really loud and we feel the concussion. But when we can't feel that concussion, what does it sound like? And it sounds like that hollow noise outside of an indoor shooting range.
Definitely. So, one of the things we do, we train with law enforcement once a year for an active shooter threat. And we bring in like 150 students to do this training with us. And that's what most of them say afterwards is they didn't know what that shotgun was going to sound like when it went off down the hallway.
Yeah.
And the guy that does our breaching like shotgun work, like he loves it. He just walks around for 2 hours shooting a 12 gauge, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I even have hearing protection. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, the students say, I didn't know that's what a gunshot was going to sound like in a hallway. Mm-hmm. So it does open up. It doesn't sound like the movies. It doesn't sound like what you think it is. It's like, that, like you said, the indoor thong, like you're like, oh, that's a shotgun going off. Like I hear it. So definitely, something to think about and to go something, like you said, you've got to be able to process it. And people do, they deny it. They're like, oh, that was just, that couple's, they're not really fighting that bad or, things like that. So I think you're right.
Yeah. And that's another thing. So the next one that I like to, so denialism first. Next, I like to talk about normalcy bias or normality bias, which it's referred to a lot of different ways in psychological texts. But this is a cognitive bias. It leads people to disbelieve or to mentally minimize any kind of threat warnings, which means that people underestimate the likelihood of a disaster. And you see it very much with hurricanes and tornadoes. Some people just like sit around and everything's fine. I'm not worried. But that's, again, your family well prepared. No, you guys were ready for it. Like you guys got safe, you got ready, and you were there. But a lot of people just they've lived their entire life without any kind of trauma in it or any terrible traumatic events in it, I should say. And because of that, they just bias towards the normal, no matter what it is. Not prepared for natural disasters, pandemics, calamities caused by human error, car accidents, things like that. And then in my notes here, I have about 70% of people reportedly display normalcy bias during a disaster. And that can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. But really, it's convincing ourselves mentally that what we're seeing is not actually happen. Like, this can't happen to me. We've heard that many times. Like, I never thought that could happen to me. And that's because we live this life. America, we're the safest that we've been in like the history of man is the society we live in. And because of that, we lose a little bit of our animal edge and a little bit of that instinct. And, we take things for granted. We convince ourselves that things are not what they seem.
I agree. And is actually, Candace and I were actually just talking about that this past week because she was doing a women's Bible study and they were talking about, in James, it's talking about, God's love, Jesus' love, things like that. And Candace was talking and these women were talking and they're like, well, how do you love evil? And like, that's a good question. And so they got brought up the fact that we live in a small town, that true evil is not here in small town South Carolina. Like, we have bad people, but like that true, like, evil, bad stuff, we haven't really seen it. And these women have not seen it. So to say, you know, that God's love, like, you're supposed to love everybody, I'm like, you know, talking about the scripture where it says, you know, you're supposed to love your brother. And they're like, well, how do you love evil? And the other lady is from New Jersey. And she was like, you guys haven't seen evil like I've seen in New Jersey. And Candace was like, you're right. Like, we live in small town America, and this lady's from a big city, and she has seen, she was telling her story and about, you know, some bad stuff that's happened she's seen. And it kind of opened, you know, Candace and I were just talking about like how we haven't seen real evil. We haven't seen how bad people actually can be.
Yeah. One of my really good friends, you know, absolute inner circle kind of guy. He served for a long time, military and external to the military, but he saw war, and sometimes he tells us some of the stories about things that he saw. And I'm like, man, how do you come back and function as a human being after seeing that evil? Talking about torture of women in Afghanistan and things like that. And it really changes kind of the way you see it, because online, you know, we see, oh yeah, we're prepping for war, you know, prepping for civil war. And he's like, man, I hope it doesn't happen. I've seen war, and war is terrifying, and war is ugly. And again, I'm glad that I haven't seen it. I'm glad that I haven't had to live that, because I imagine it makes it very difficult. And he battles his demons, but he battles them well. But yeah, he doesn't have that normalcy bias because he's seen the worst that human beings and war can offer, and he's seen it. So nothing surprises him, and he doesn't try to convince himself that evil doesn't exist, or that death doesn't exist, or that traumatic incidents don't exist, because he's seen it and he can respond to it in kind.
Definitely. And, you know, going back to what you were talking about before, you know, we had some flooding that was potential here, probably 2 weeks ago now. We had a hurricane come out of the Gulf and come right towards South Carolina. So they were expecting, you know, 6 to 8 inches of rain within a short period of time. So localized flooding. We have one area of our county that you drive down the road and it's a big sign that says you are entering into a floodplain, and there's houses right there. So obviously every time it rains hard, those houses get flooded. So we went, tried to do some pre-planning, and knocked on our doors, and we're like, hey, you're getting a lot of rain tomorrow, 6 to 8 inches of rain over 2 hours. This place is going to flood. And every single one of those people stayed. They're like, nope, not our house, not our problem. And then within a few hours, we're out there doing rescues.
Yes.
And we're like, so now you're putting us in danger, because you're like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. Not going to happen here. And, you know, even for me, like you brought the tornadoes, like I admit, like I was like, oh, there's no way that tornado is going to hit our house. Like, not going to happen. And like, maybe that's just me trying to psych myself up. Like, oh, I just built this brand new house. It's not going to hit our house. That can't happen. And it comes within a quarter mile. We watched off the back porch. I was like, holy crap. And it's just, it was super intimidating that the fact that could happen. But it just, you know, makes you be more prepared. But yeah, like I would like to say I had that, you know, I was like, oh, there's no way a tornado is going to hit us, like blah, blah. And all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, that tornado is going to hit us.
Yep.
And it went within a quarter mile. We could see it off our back porch down in the valley. So it happens, but being prepared, what was that thing I read? Like being lucky doesn't happen. It's being preparation meets opportunity. Like, yeah, like that's what we have to be prepared for it, and to take training classes, and, you know, to be prepared and kind of have that mindset. Because if you are just going to the indoor range and you're shooting that precious gold 9mm at 46 cents a round right now, you know, does that really do anything? You know, does it really help your mindset? Does it really help in training? Or are you getting your gun out and can you do 20 burpees and then shoot? Or are you running and gunning? Are you moving to cover and concealment? You know, that kind of mindset it's a different kind of training class than just going to an indoor range. Like I'm not bashing going to an indoor range, but you know, in 2021, or have you planned to go to any pistol classes or, you know, any medical classes? I'll put a plug in for us. You know, we're getting our medical class by going here on the East Coast. Sean has it on the West Coast. You know, have you thought about putting yourself in that stress level and seeing how you're going to perform?
Yeah, absolutely. So denialism and normalcy bias. And again, I'm not telling people this because I'm like, you have to react like a tier 1 operator, Delta Force, whatever. I'm saying no, recognize that these things exist, recognize that bad things do happen, recognize when they happen to people and how they respond to them, and think about it. Because if you think about it right this second, if it happens to you tomorrow, guess what? You're going to be better prepared than just about everybody around there, because they're walking around like nothing bad's ever going to happen to them in their whole life. So very, very important. And then the final psychological factor that we take into effect, and I think we've talked about it before on the show, is just the bystander effect, or bystander apathy, as it were. That is just the more people that there are around a traumatic incident, the less likely somebody is to help. Now, if you were walking along a street and it was just you walking down the sidewalk and an old lady walking down the sidewalk, and an old lady falls down 15 feet from you, it is very likely that you're going to go over and help. If there is 10 people standing around on a sidewalk, a couple people talking to each other, a couple people, checking their phones, and an old lady falls down 15 feet from you, it is very unlikely that somebody's going to respond, and that they're going to respond as quickly as you would if you were by yourself. And most of that is honestly just, socio-psychological things. We don't want to do the wrong thing. We don't want to look stupid in front of everybody. We don't want to, be liable for anything that we might do. We don't want to get involved because, God, we got to get to work. We're on our way to work. And if this happens, my boss is never going to believe that, somebody fell on the streets. One of these other people, they'll take care of it. And that is bystander apathy, or the bystander effect. It's very common, and it absolutely happens. If you watch any of these post-traumatic videos, you'll see that it happens. People don't know what to do. They don't want to get involved, and they don't get involved. There was an episode of Seinfeld about this, like the season finale, I think, or the series finale, where they don't get involved and they all get thrown in jail. A judge throws the book at them because they don't help when they should have. And bystander effect, it's real. You talk about that in your class, right?
Definitely. We talk about that. The fact, and I think that because you signed up to come to a medical class, it kind of puts you over that edge, that ledge going there. But yeah, we see it. You're seeing videos of, someone falling, and there's, security cameras. People just keep on walking by. And I'm like, oh gosh, like that's crazy. That's crazy talk to me, thinking about that kind of stuff. But yeah, it happens. And we see this in, active threat scenarios, or even just an old lady falls on the side of the road. No one just keep out on walking. I was like, is that where we are at as a society? But like you said, everybody, we're super selfish for like, oh, I'm going to be late for work. My coffee's going to be ready in 2 minutes. I got to make it there. The Starbucks app's kicking on. So, we have it. And so you have to be able to break it. And the only way you're going to do that is training. I've listened to podcasts helps, watching my videos helps, but actually putting yourself under stress and seeing how your hands cannot function under stress, that's the only way you're going to make yourself better.
Yeah. Lastly, I like to talk about pre-attack indicators or pre-violence indicators. And these are just things to pay attention to. I know my girlfriend Angel, she'll constantly be like, what, where'd you go? Because we'll be somewhere public, and suddenly she'll be talking and I'll just fade out. And 99.999% of the time, it's because I have picked up on something that required a little bit more attention. So it happened, we were in the store and we were walking down the aisle and we were just having a normal conversation back and forth. And then I heard someone raise their voice. It was a guy yelling at his girlfriend or whatever. I didn't know where it came from, but suddenly, because I was focused on tone of voice and the words used, because they are not normal, they were abnormal in the situation, they were out of the ordinary, I focused on it. Not because I'm nosy. Well, I'm nosy, but I focused on it because, especially domestic stuff, that those things can go haywire so quickly. So I focused on it to figure out, okay, do I need to take evasive action, or do I need to make sure we don't walk by that aisle? Does somebody need help? All these things are going through my mind. What is my escape path? How do I get out of the situation if something pops off right now? Stuff always happens. Not to most people, because, we live a normal life and we have normalcy vibes, but I'm paying attention to it just so I can react correctly if something does happen. I don't want anything to happen, and it probably never will. But if it does, I'm not going to be caught off guard. And then she'll be like, "Where'd you go?" And I was like, I just heard some guy yelling at his girlfriend. I was just focused on it for a second. And she'd be like, at first, I think thought I was just ignoring her, but now she kind of realizes that I'm just trying to make sure that we're safe and just trying to pay attention to things so that if something does go crazy. But there's basically 5 pre-violence or pre-attack indicators. So distance is crucial. People talk about the tool or drill. People generally stay outside your bubble unless it's just a matter of convenience, right?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, especially these days of social distancing. But if someone breaks that personal bubble, and I think we all know what it is, it's different for everybody, but we know what that is. That distance can be an indicator because they have to close a gap between you before they can perpetrate violence upon you. So distance is hugely important. If someone's inside that bubble, maybe they're just a little bit Aspergy, and maybe that's all it is. But distance is definitely something to pay attention to, a person's distance to you, because again, violence can be perpetrated quickly if they're within hands reach. Positioning. How are they positioned when they're talking to you, talking to somebody else, right? We know what it looks like when people are about to throw down and fight. And generally people will I'm totally drawing a blank right now. They will posture. Mm-hmm. People will posture. They'll turn sideways, hands clenching, things like that. Watching people's body language, watching people's body position is a good indicator.
Even like watching their eyes, like where their eyes looking at, what they're focused on.
Yes, eye focus is absolutely one of those things. Now, pull into a parking lot at an apartment or something, and you get out and there's just somebody leaning up against a wall smoking. What are their eyes looking at? Most people won't make eye contact with you. So that's one of my first challenges to anybody that I feel is like out of the ordinary, is I will look directly at them. And if they break eye contact, sometimes can mean that not a threat whatsoever. If they stare straight at you, to me, that is a pre-violence indicator without question. What are they looking at? Are they looking at their hands? Are they looking at the ground? Are they looking at their phone? Probably not a huge threat. And I'm not saying that this is set in stone. These are just some of the things. Hand movements, they absolutely show readiness to take action. How people, here's a perfect example for firearms, 3-gun. They'll get there and they'll wring their hands out and they'll shrug their shoulders a little bit. And I call it range theatrics, or Pat McNamara, I guess, calls it range theatrics. And they'll just like do all these things. And I'm like, what are you doing? But really, they're just readying to take action. They're trying to, like, I don't know, get the blood flowing. They're trying to, they do these rituals. But yeah, if you see somebody clenching their hands, that could be a good indicator that they're ready to throw down, ready to throw punches, things like that. Tone of voice, word choice. This is a huge one. You can hear when somebody's angry in the tone of their voice, generally. When I hear angry voices around me in public settings, I immediately am trying to track down where it is so I can watch, because that is a pre-violence or a pre-attack vector or indicator. Excessive repetition, the words that they use. We live in a polite society generally, and anyone who goes outside those polite boundaries, I am paying attention to them, just because that can be a pre-violence indicator. And all those things, and again, just to break that down, is distance, positioning, tone of voice, word choice, hand movements, eye focus. Will they make eye contact? These are all things that I keep an eye out for. The other night, leaving the office, it was about 10:40. Like a 15, 16-hour day. Walking down to the front door, and the back door is glass doors, and it opens onto the parking lot. As I hit the bottom stair, there's a homeless looking crazy dude standing about 10 feet away. I stop. I stop and kind of look at him, and he looks at me. He makes direct eye contact. He's a short dude. I would have beat his ass. He's like 4 feet tall. I could fight.
You got him.
Yeah. However, that direct eye contact, that he was sizing me up in the same way that I was sizing him up.
Do you think he thought he could take you too, or?
Yeah, probably, because everybody's a little bit cocksure, right? Like everyone's like, oh, I can take them. So I hadn't opened the door yet. I sized him up for a second, and then I just waited for a second watching him. He was looking right at me. I was just watching him. I pushed the press handle on the door. I pushed the door open. Can I help you with something? What do you guys do here? My answer, a lot of things. Can I help you with something? Oh, I was just wondering. Yeah, well, I know I saw you on the cameras. What can I help you with? And that was me posturing, cameras everywhere. And then he started to walk off. And I sat there behind the door because I know for a fact he can come up, he can smash that door, but not before I draw my firearm. And I'm ready to engage a threat if I believe that there's immediate, unavoidable danger of serious bodily death or harm, or serious death or serious bodily harm.
I still don't have that memorized yet.
Yeah, I know. Watched him until he exited over to the parking lot, and then Angel and I opened the door, walked to the car. But it was 100%. There was another time at WLSHQ here. I was taking things out to the dumpster, and the dumpster used to be all the way across the parking lot. So it's about, I don't know, probably 80 yards away. So I walked with a bunch of my stuff. I had 2 hands full of trash bags, and there was a guy walking down the alley horizontal to the trash cans, and I was coming at a vertical approach. I got there right before he did, and I started to throw the trash bags in the trash can when I noticed that his hand was behind him in his waist, and he came up to me and asked if I needed help. And we've talked about this on the show before, I think. And I was like, nope, don't need any help. And immediately sidestepped to the left 1 second to put the dumpster between him and I. And then I don't remember exactly what verbal jujitsu there was, but he said something and he was looking me dead in the eye. He was fidgety. He had his hand behind his back. And actually, I did catch a glimpse. It was a piece of metal. I don't know. It wasn't like a tire iron or something. It was just like some scrap metal that they found, but definitely looked like it could inflict some damage. So I drop the trash bag that was in my right hand that I was about to swing into the thing with the corner of the dumpster in between him and I. He was looking right at me. I said, no, I don't need any help. I've got it. Thank you. Still polite, but definitely firm. And he took a step towards me, and this is all going on within 10 feet of each other. This is every pre-violence, pre-attack indicator that I could think of possible. I looked him dead in the eyes and I said, I'm not the guy. And he started to act all flabbergasted or whatever. And then he walked off muttering to himself with that piece of metal in his hand. And I don't know if he knew what I meant, but I was like, I'm not the one to mess with. Because to me, that was like all the pre-violence indicators, but I didn't draw my firearm. I didn't do anything, but I was ready. Had he rushed, I could have easily stepped around the other side of the trash can. He's got to take all those angles, moving at a much faster rate than I am. And again, it was the choice of words, the fact that he seemed like he was altered mental status, the positioning, he closed to that distance, his hand movements. One was behind him. His eye focus was on me, looking directly at me, challenging me. It had all the hallmarks of a violent attack. It didn't end up being one. I don't know if that was just because I talked my way out of it, but maybe it was nothing. Maybe he just wanted to help me and he was a homeless dude and he thought maybe I'd give him money. Maybe. I don't know. And I'm glad I don't ever have to know because I was ready for it. I was prepared for it. I understood what these things can be. I did not try to convince myself that everything was normal and that this was a perfectly normal thing. I didn't deny what was going on. I was ready for it. If things needed to be there. And yeah, I knew for a fact that I was on camera from my office and that I would have complete high-res video of the entire altercation. So it's just kind of all these different things and just being ready for these situations. And this is the part where I say it is very important, very, very, very important not to live your life in fear. Like I'm not afraid of anything except the normal things that people
Jeremy.
fear. Right. Yeah, exactly. Ogres, things like that. I don't live my life in fear. I just try to be a little bit prepared. I try to take what I've learned and apply it to my daily life so that I'm not running around like a mindless automaton that's just doing action A, B, and C till they get home, drink beer till they pass out, and then wake up the next day and do it all over again. I try to break out of all these things that we are taught in society that everything's normal, that nothing bad's going to happen, that if we just do what the bad guys want, that everything will be fine. I try to live outside that. I try to make sure that I'm ready should things happen, but I fully expect that in my life I will never have to deal with any kind of traumatic incidents. What do you think?
No, I agree. I definitely, just going back to your scenario, I think that's the perfect example why I carry a flashlight in my other pocket. Just because, I do like the idea of weapon lights. I use them. I use a lot of weapon lights, but for me, I think about that because then you can, the reason why the cops, when they pull you over and they turn all the white lights on behind you, is they're creating a wall.
Oh yeah.
And that's a light wall. And it's super bright. It's to blind you. And so I think like that scenario, like instead of going straight to lethal, like that's an option. Pull your flashlight out, light him up and say, I'm not the guy. You need to walk away. And that does, it gives you an advantage. And, for me, I'm a small guy. I like to fight, but I'm still a small guy. So I'm going to take every advantage I can get. I was doing some stuff this week and we were talking about active shooters and there's like, a bunch of football players in there. And I said, look, it's like 10 of you guys in here versus me. If I'm the bad guy, you guys think you could take me? And there was like 2 guys looked me dead in my face and my eyes, like you said, that straight look in the eyes and said, I can take you. And I was like, all right, we'll do it. But we're going to the floor first, by gosh.
Yeah, exactly. Got to use your advantages.
But I love it. And I was like, no, that just think about your scenario. I was like, no, for me, like that's why I carry a flashlight, a good solid flashlight. That way I can create that wall of light and give me an advantage.
I agree. Now that second scenario by the dumpster, that was actually 11 a.m. It was mid-morning, so it was bright daylight.
So you don't, no.
But yeah, I totally agree. Like the dude, the first story, like at night, yeah, if he would have approached that door, I would have shined him.
And then, I make the joke about, what you may get me, but at least you're gonna know the fight happened. And that's 100%. I mean, if I, you may get me, but at least they're gonna know the fight happened. I'm gonna leave some blood on the ground knowing where the fight happened. So
yeah.
I'm not gonna lay there and play dead. I'm not gonna lay down and pretend like everything's gonna be okay. I'm gonna fight, and we'll figure that out later. But I'm gonna fight, and if I'm gonna give my 100% to win this fight, whatever it has to be, I'm gonna cheat. If I have to cheat, I'm gonna cheat.
Yep.
There's no fair fights anymore. So
I agree. My friend Jeremy, you mentioned him. He's 6'8" and just built like a gorilla. He is built like a gorilla. Like the dude,
he's bigger than a gorilla. Like I would love to see him in a gorilla fight.
Yeah, actually, he is. He's enormous, and he definitely. I tell him all the time. He's like, if we fought, I would murder you. I was like, yes, I 100% agree, but I swear to God, I'm taking one of your eyes with me. Like you're gonna live the rest of your life as a man with only one eye. You may kill me, but you're gonna pay the price.
Definitely. And I think that's where, size, I was going to say size matters, but yeah, I can't even say that with a straight face anymore. No, but like Jeremy is huge.
Yeah.
And a homeless guy walking down the road is not going to mess with him. I'm a smaller frame guy. This guy's like, I think I can take that dude. Yeah. You can't, but I promise you, I'm going to let you know, the police are going to know exactly where this fight happened. My wife's going to shoot you and that's how it's going to work. But yeah, just I think, for those people that are smaller stature, don't have that big intimidating look, then yeah, you're going to have to be prepared to a little more aggressive.
Yeah, I agree very much with that. People generally attack targets of opportunity. And that's another important thing to understand when we talk about this. How often do people just mess with you? Like just start picking on you in public?
Not so much anymore. In high school, it was. I mean, so that's why I love to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a little scrawny dude. I was probably 110 pounds in high school. So everybody wanted to fight, middle school, high school. So I love to fight. But yeah, so not so much anymore now, but yeah, you can see it. And, like going downtown, homeless guy wants to stare you down. And so now before, in years past, I'm like, all right, whatever. I just ignore the guy. But now that I've had some training, I've had some education, that homeless guy wants to stare me down, I'm going to stare right back at him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Your call, bud. Like, if you want to do this, we can do it. And
if you look down and look away, it can be seen as a sign of weakness. And people, criminals generally prey on people that they think that they can overcome easily, right? It's not like they're going out and challenging the leader of the pack, right? They want something, whether it's money, whether it's sex, whether it's whatever. They want something, and they're not just generally going to go attack anybody that they can possibly see. They're going to attack the ones that they feel are weak, the ones that they feel like they can take advantage of. And this is especially important for women to keep mind of, is those predators. They will attack what they see as someone that they can easily take what they want from without any hesitation. So for women, that's even more that you have to pay attention to all of those different things.
Definitely, 100%. They're looking for the weak target, and just because I'm a little skinny guy with a dad bod, they're like, oh, I take that guy, but they don't know that I have a Glock 19 with extra magazine, with a knife. I have a flashlight, so I shoot a lot. I shoot at least once a week, sometimes multiple times a week. So,
yep.
And it's not just me shooting at a range. Like I will do push-ups, I will do burpees, I will, try to do what I can do to get my heart rate up, and get out of the truck, park my truck. I'm able, we have a range on our property, so all right, I park my truck, boom, I'm out of the truck, I'm putting targets on steel and moving around. So, yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yep. All right. So, I mean, that's pretty much what I teach in my class. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
You're welcome. I feel better now after our psych meeting.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that's generally what I talk about. And, just keep it in mind. Keep an eye out for those pre-violence or pre-attack indicators, or just people trying to size up the weaker members of the herd. Don't forget that it's fight, flight, freeze, posture, and submit. Figure out which one you do, and then figure out how to do the ones that are a little bit more survivable. And definitely denialism, normalcy bias, and bystander effect. Think about those things every single day. When you are faced with something, immediately examine how you respond to it so you can figure out which one you are, so that you can react better to the next one. And that's pretty much it. Just think about those things. Listen to this a couple times if you have to. And if we get anything wrong, definitely let us know.
I'm sure they will.
They definitely will. Before we go, though, I do want to mention Medical Gear Outfitters just came out with a new thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your help on that one. We wanted a kit that you could put in your other cargo pocket, in which I made fun of you in the other video while I was wearing cargo pockets. And I probably should have showed that in video, but like people started like really getting hateful in the comments. I'm like, man, I wear True Specs all the time. Like I'm wearing True Specs to 24/7 series right now.
Yep. I was laughing.
But it's hilarious. But anyway, you wanted a kit that you could have basically all the trauma supplies to treat the March algorithm in your pocket. So you have a cat tourniquet in one cargo pocket, so we didn't really have to necessarily have a top of line tourniquet.
Yeah, like a tier one.
Yeah, trying to use my words, choose them wisely there. But a teachable C recommended tourniquet, we didn't need it, so we could go with something else, and that's what we did. So we did a hyphen chest seal. We have a pre-lubed MPA in there. We have a survival blanket. We have a pack of combat gauze. We have a pair of gloves, and we went with the SWAT C tourniquet. The SWAT C tourniquet is not the best one-handed application tourniquet. It's going to be good, a really good pressure bandage. It's good for kids, for dogs. If you have both hands free, it does have its advantages. But I like the fact that we can use it for multiple things. It makes a good pressure bandage. It can make a tourniquet, stuff like that. And we vacuum seal it down. We're still playing with the vacuum sealer, trying to get everything perfected there. But
yeah,
overall, I'm happy with that kit.
I've been carrying it every single day since I got it. It fits perfectly in my cargo pocket, like perfectly. And it's not too bulky. Like if I'm walking by, no one's even going to notice. Like if you stare at my pants, you'd be like, okay, there's something in that pocket for sure. But this is exactly what I was looking for, because in the winter, in the fall, when I'm wearing pants every day, it's my ankle kit underneath my jeans. But during the summer, I wear shorts all summer long. Pants maybe twice the entire summer, and I just didn't have a great way besides putting it in a backpack or something like that. And this is exactly what I was looking for. It's right in a cargo pocket, not too bulky. And look, when you carry a gun, when you carry a med kit, there's always trade-offs, right? It exists. It's a thing that's in your pocket, and you feel it. I bump into it 2 or 3 times a day, but I'm getting a little bit better about it. But yes, as far as I'm concerned, carrying a cat in my other pocket and this in my left cargo pocket, it is exactly what I wanted, and it's awesome. And they can save money, right?
Definitely. So they can use coupon code Civilian Medical and save 10%. So that kit comes right at like $75.99. It's kind of a weird price, but what we needed to be at. So you can save 10% off of that. We use the coupon code Civilian Medical, and we have a really nice vacuum sealer. I could have bought a nice AR for that vacuum sealer, but I decided to buy a vacuum sealer that costs as much as an AR-15. And we're gonna make some more kits. Like I hope to come up with some more trauma kits. I'd like to do like a bicycle kit. The kit we're working on now is a dog for your dog. So kind of some different items. So I think between now and the end of the year, you're going to see a bunch of vacuum seal kits come out.
Very cool. I love it. Excellent job. And again, medicalgearoutfitters.com, coupon code Civilian Medical saves you money. Diedrich, any final words of wisdom before we get on out of here?
No, that's it. I appreciate it. I hope everyone, as we're coming out of this COVID crap, is looking at different training classes. I mean, there's quite a few people who are doing training classes all across the U.S. So look them up. So if you're on the East Coast, come to my class. If you're on the West Coast, go to We Like Shooting. But we'll figure it out. Maybe this spring we'll do another one together in Colorado Springs. I'm excited about that.
We're definitely doing it. And we'll talk to all of you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Find us and subscribe at civmedical.com.